Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, The Wire Remix, Season 3, Episode 3, Dead Soldiers. As always, I'm joined by one Robert Sapp. How you doing, Mr. Sapp?
Doing very well. Doing very well. Hopefully everybody's staying dry.
Yeah, a little ugly out there today as in comparison to yesterday, which was beautiful. Um, this episode, of course, is ranked by Vulture 46th of all time. So they really didn't particularly care too much for this episode, but didn't hate it. Directed by Rob Bailey. You had the epigraph, "The Gods Will Not Save You," by one Commissioner Burrell. And truer. There may not have ever been a truer epigraph than that. The gods will not save you in regards to this show. We'll flush that out. Themes, very simple to me. Unhappy bosses. There were a number of bosses that were just not happy with the work that was being put out by their subordinates. We will flush that out over the course of this episode. Opening scene, we go to Comstat. Our buddy Major Taylor just gets continues to get berated by Rawls. He They put him out as misery, have his second command take his position as the new major in that particular district. Um, Rawls was in his asshole bag in this scene. Now, last week, me and you had a slight disagreement on Rawls and how he came about. Taylor's competence and Rawls was being an asshole. This scene, or I will not argue whatsoever for this particular scene. He was in his. He's telling a story about a little girl who grows up to be a prostitute who doesn't want your job because the Western District is not going. We're not going to have a Western District in 20 years, and he goes into just yeah. Just major Rawls. I mean, we've seen this over the course of 3 seasons with him, but he was in his asshole bag during this particular scene. And then, of course, you had Burrell finish it up, finish it up with, listen, take the, replaces him with his second in command. Um, before they entered the room, he was yakking in the bathroom. So that kind of would foreshadow what was going to happen. He's hacking in the bathroom and telling Bunny Coven, I don't want to think what these motherfuckers can do to me. So he was ready. He was ready to be taken out of his misery. I don't think he really going to complain about that at all, considering at least he won't be getting berated anymore. I had to stand in front of that front line with Rawls and Burrell coming at him. So you had that going on. Then you had Bunny in front of the Rawls and Burrell as well. Bunny basically said, Bunny is like, no, I'm actually going ahead. Bunny was this was they'll get Bunny in another scene. So uh, Taylor basically said they're going to sell their drugs regardless of where they move. They're going to move. They move. He says, kid. They go from corner to corner. Taylor says, I deployed my resources as per your instructions, and they still continue to sell drugs. So, and by the way, he's right from that standpoint. So you had that going on for that particular scene. What were your thoughts on this opening scene?
Yeah, I think two things. The first thing is more writing based in terms of kind of like what lean off of what I said last week. Like you can see the continued elevation of the writing in this episode, particularly specifically when we're talking about this beginning scene, just kind of like of the we're noticing actors getting lots and lots of dialogue to chew on. So the Rawls character getting lots and lots of dialogue to chew on. And that will be not only a staple from now on, but not only a staple from this entire episode, but it'll also be a staple from now on throughout the wire. The second thing is the saying "shit rolls downhill." So this is showing how a policy initiative that is started by the mayor's office to get what's his name the politician. Why am I blanking?
Arcady?
Carcetti. To get Carcetti off his back, is now starting to roll downhill. So in order to get those numbers, and of course Burrell to be permanent commissioner, get his permanent commissioner seat. In order to get those numbers, they have to put pressure on their direct subordinates so that they can put pressure on their direct subordinates, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And so again, it's another example as how initiatives, how policy, how things that are coming down that the police officers, detectives that we see have to execute, how that is not coming from a place of public safety.
Right. Omar, Tasha, Dante, and Kimmy, they are casing another Barksdale stash house. And they, you have them in the car having a conversation. As they're waiting. Actually, Omar, well, they are casing the stash house, but Omar is the one that's out there really casing it. They're in the car. Tasha, Dante, and Kimmy are in the car having a conversation, joking a little bit. Then you see a Barksdale car drive past. They hide real quick before Omar gets back. Omar tells them, like, yeah, they got, it's a lot of muscle up there, but by morning they're gonna scale down to 3-man skeleton crews. Keep that thought in mind. I mean, keep that statement in mind, because I'm gonna get back to that one later on in the episode. So one of the girls, I believe it was Tasha, starts to question, why do we have to keep robbing Barksdale stash houses? It's easier out there. Kimmy agrees totally, and Omar basically has no retort to that. He basically says because, and that's it. So this of course will be a major setup for what transpires further down later in the episode. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my big thought is this is the beginning of Omar's fatal flaw right here. And so we've talked a lot about the Omar character and how the Omar character, there are a lot of great things about the character. But one of the things that's not so great, and like I said, I believe ultimately to be his fatal flaw, is that he can't take his eyes off of the Barksdale. And Tasha calls him out on it. And you're absolutely right. He had no answer for it because it's personal. It's absolutely personal. There's no business reason for the business that they're in for him to continuously target just one crew. As a matter of fact, you could say it's borderline irresponsible. And we'll get to that a little bit later.
No question.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yep. You have Bunk and McNulty. So we see a suspect that's been beat up in the interrogation room. Bunk explains how that happened. The Western, and this, matter of fact, this was the suspect that was a part of the Dozeman that allegedly
shot Doberman. Dozeman.
Yes, Dozeman. So
yeah,
Bunk explains to McNulty they took him. The Western boys took him as a piñata, treated him like a piñata and beat the shit out of him, which they did. And then we have Bunk looking at D'Angelo Barksdale's photos that McNulty has brought over for him to see. And Bunk basically confirms what McNulty probably already knows, saying that already knows that this was a murder, not a suicide. And then we also find out, and I love this part of the scene. You figure that they have the suspect, that the Dozeman case would be down, and that would be a clearance. No. The case isn't the Bunks. So the older guy, I forgot his name, comes by, who's a notch below Rawls, a deputy. He's a deputy. He's a notch below Rawls. Or no, maybe he's not a deputy. He's Bunk's boss, but a notch below Rawls comes by and says, this case isn't down to recover Dozeman's gun. So Bunk is, of course, basically like, what the fuck? Like, I got chase a gun and McNulty, of course, agrees, saying out of all the guns in Baltimore, who cares about one? Who cares about one gun? Yeah, I just could not imagine as a homicide officer, well, having a case where we have the guy and the case is down because we haven't recovered a gun. So yeah, that really jumped out to me in this particular scene. What were your thoughts?
This is plot. This is a plot. This is plot.
To move the plot to like further to move the plot.
Yeah.
So would you agree that this was not a great piece of writing?
I don't know if I necessarily I don't have the same type of feeling towards it that I had when they were kind of like keeping McNulty busy in season 2.
I was going to get on that.
Yeah. But it is a little bit forced in the same thing of they need to figure out a way to connect Bunk to the overall investigation that will ultimately end up, or they need to not the overall. They're not doing that this season like that. They need a way to connect Bunk to what's going on, and as we follow how this gun tracks,
yes,
we'll be able to see what the connection is.
Absolutely,
yeah,
we'll find that out. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But it's definitely, this is something to move the plot along.
Yes. Stringer and Prop Joe meet out in the rain. Prop Joe tells Stringer that the cops blew their wire with the cheese case, and he recommends that he keeps a low profile and keeps a low profile and keeps the cops bored. Quick scene, but very important scene. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is that Prop Joe and Stringer see eye to eye in their theory about how the drug game should be, and so it makes sense that they're connected in all of this. Otherwise, this is the beginning of this is not even the beginning. This is another detail in everything that we've been talking about in terms of Stringer, Prop Joe, Avon, the drug game, Omar, all that. This is just another detail. What Prop Joe is essentially telling him, as you said, was nothing that draws the police to them. And also, nothing, don't give them any more. They know they're on them. Don't give them anything.
Also, you had both of them confirming that they don't talk on, neither one of them talks on the phone. Prop Joe asks, right. I don't talk on the phone. Do you talk on the phone? Stringer says, of course, right. No. So you have that going as well. Colvin and Lieutenant Mello, they are looking for spots, of course, to execute Colvin's plan, which we talked about last podcast. So this scene was definitely a setup scene. So they're looking at various vacant spots to set up what Colvin's grand plan. Any thoughts on this?
Setup.
Carcetti and Tony Gray. So, and a reporter as well. So Carcetti is beating him in this game called Liar's Poker. I don't know. Have you ever played Liar's Poker?
I mean, it's just straight up gambling.
Okay. So
I mean, there's no necessary requisite skill to it. It's just, okay. I mean, you might as well be gambling on which is when I pull the card out the deck, which is the highest card, right? It will be a king or will it be a deuce.
Yeah, just ABC version of gambling.
Yeah, they're just gambling. They're just literally just sitting there just gambling.
So he's beating him and beating him badly, which I think I never thought about this prior to watching the scene. Many times I've seen it, which actually makes sense in terms of the direction of where their characters are going to go and what type of character Carcetti is. Anyway, so the reporter comes up. Carcetti tells the reporter there's not going to be academy class for the cadets. And he says that blames the high crime rate on Royce for not funding police training, and tells the reporter, You confirmed that. I got some quotes. I'll have some more quotes for you. Gray, the reporter asked Tony Gray, does he want any part of this? And from that standpoint, he's like, nope, I'm good. I love my mayor. And then after the reporter leaves, you have Gray questioning Carcetti, asking him, say, you're trying to stir some shit up. And then Carcetti says, maybe a little bit. And the scene wraps up with at that. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. So this is an important scene for a lot of different reasons. I think you nailed it like early on, like when you were talking about like the like how this scene sets up both of their characters. You're absolutely right. So I won't talk about like the card part of it. The thing that I noticed that kind of like concurs with what you're saying is when the reporter comes in, initially Tony's going to leave. He starts to get up to leave, and Carcetti just kind of has a motion that just kind of like says, sit down. So basically just kind of like watch and see how I'm going to play this. And so I'll wrap back up to that point. But this is also particularly an important scene because it kind of opens, it gives us the rules to how this is played, how the game is played. And so like, let's take, for example, any kind of like political whatever. And you have the quotes and the sources and everything, sometimes unnamed, sometimes on the record, off the record, all the different ways in which it goes. This kind of gives us the rule book, right? We know Carcetti has another, those of us who watch it knows what his ultimate goal is, but we know even at this point, there's something bigger that he's after. People can probably guess and assume, and even I think in watching the show and at the time, it was fairly obvious what his ultimate goal was. But without spoiling that, he has bigger goals in mind, and so he's going to chip away at Rawls. And we talked about how one of the big things is that he needs a snitch. And so this is the second, like the first thing was just to draw Rawls in, get him the easy win with the band's back. This is now the more complicated one. This is now where the game really, really begins, because not only does he have to get Rawls what he wants, but he also has to make the mayor look bad in the process, but also can't lose Rawls either in the process. He can't lose his snitch inside the inner circle.
Talking about Burrell.
Yeah, Burrell. Sorry, I said Rawls. Burrell. I meant Burrell. Sorry. So he needs Burrell and can't lose Burrell as his snitch. So he has to figure out a way. Carcetti has to figure out a way to make the mayor look bad. He has to figure out a way to get Burrell his class, but he also has to do it in a way that doesn't alienate Burrell. But also he's setting, this is why it's complete, like this is why it's so important. Also, he's setting up, he needs the idea to be installed in Tony Gray's head for what he needs to do in the future. Yes. So that's why he doesn't let Tony Gray leave that room. Yes. That's next level playing, right? Yes. Like he can not only see the things that he can do, like that he has direct control over, but then he needs to manipulate other people to play their parts in order to help him out. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving pieces in this scene, and it's a short scene, but it's a very important scene.
Very important scene, and it reminds me, it foreshadows, forget about The Wire, it foreshadows this actor in terms of the type of character he would play in Game of Thrones in terms of Littlefinger. This is some Littlefinger shit right here that he was doing. That's what I thought about when, as you're describing this. Like this is Littlefinger before Littlefinger. That in terms of how he's setting this up with the chess game, and he's doing all these moves ahead. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. And like you said, he is a balancing. It's a lot of things he's trying to do, and he needs a lot of things to happen in order for it to come through, to go through. Colvin and Mello, uh, they again they continue their looking at places, but they also Colvin lets Mello know that the bosses don't know about this at all. So that again, this is a short scene, but he lets Mello know that of course the bosses know nothing about this plan that he's trying to that he's going to try to enact. We get to the detail. So the detail, Daniels announces that they have a new target named Kentel Williamson, who's not nobody big, local dealer, not even dealer, maybe even a higher above dealer, a guy who's dropping bodies and who has a couple of corners. Nobody certainly on the level of Prop Joe or Stringer. And of course, you have Kima. And by the way, McNulty was not at this meeting. He was doing his own thing with with D'Angelo Barstow chasing, looking for that. So you have everybody is basically like, okay, this is what we're going to do, except Kima. Kima's complaining about, we're going with shifting, we're just quitting Prop Joe and Stringer over a blown wire, and she channels her inner McNulty from that standpoint, and Prez Badusky jokes with her about that at the latter part of the scene. So the big part is the detail has shifted now to another drug dealer because he is dropping bodies, and that is the mandate around the district now. We gotta calm down these we got to bring down this murder rate, and like to your point about shit trickling down, that's this is the mayor, Carcetti to the mayor to Rawls. Now the detail is feeling that effect of all those decisions and moving parts as well. What were your thoughts?
No, you made the point. That's it.
You have McNulty goes to Jessup. He reenacts D'Angelo in terms of the hanging, or in terms of the murder. He reenacts that, and of course confirms what we already knew and what he thought of as well, that D'Angelo Barstow did not kill himself, that his death was indeed a murder. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
Colvin and Mello again Colvin and Mello continuing to look at spots for his plan. That's of course that is a setup scene. Carcetti and Burrell. So Carcetti gets on the phone with Burrell. He gives Burrell about the heads up about the reporter asking him questions about the academy class, and tells him to no comment. The reporter, Burrell, of course, is besides himself because he does not want to be exposed as a snitch, and doesn't want to look bad from that standpoint. So, but Carcetti's like, look, you got your, I took care of you. Don't worry about it. If the reporter asks questions, just simply no comment. The reporter. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah. This is set up, but pretty much just hammers home what we were talking about.
We get to Cuddy and Grace's sister. Grace, of course, is his Cuddy's old flame back in the day when he was out there dealing, as an enforcer for the Barksdales. He's looking for Grace. He runs into her sister. He runs into her sister, who is a crackhead, and she tells him where to go find. She tells him where to go find Grace, basically.
Yeah, set up.
Omar, so we get to the big scene. Omar, Kimmy, Dante, and Tasha. So they rob the Barksdale stash house. They get into a gunfight with the Barksdales, in which Dante accidentally shoots Tasha before they get to the car. You also had Kimmy shooting one of the Barksdale soldiers. Watching this scene, just a horrible plan altogether. Couple questions here. So I counted at least 5 to 6 Barksdale soldiers The reason why I say that is Omar told the crew that they're going to scale back to a skeleton crew of 3. I think this is my personal opinion. I think he purposely misled his crew. I don't think he.
No.
You don't think so?
Sorry, no.
You don't think? Okay.
No.
So Omar, under us, of course. Well, Omar miscalculates.
There you go.
Miscalculates how many Barksdale soldiers there were going to be, which, by the way, to me is obviously is a huge mistake. But to me, this is where, getting to your point about his, being so sought out on vengeance that it clouds his judgment, because they're waiting for him. They are absolutely waiting.
Yeah.
He basically
goes. The point.
He basically goes into an ambush.
Yep.
And
that's the point.
And gets, in essence, gets one of his soldiers, one of his partners killed. Matter.
Yep.
We go back to season 1. We had a disagreement about him coming at Avon, and in terms of how bad that plan was. This is like 20 times worse, because at least the plan with Avon had things where you go through Prop Joe, you get the number, you get Weebay's number, so at least that had some steps to a plan, and he almost killed Avon. He got close, just missed the shot. This one, there was no rhyme or reason. This plan was fucked from jump. Like this plan had no chance whatsoever. It was only a matter of time before somebody got killed, which somebody did get killed. This was Omar completely just allow his emotion to get in the way of his normally sound judgment. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that like you hit all the major points. I mean, like that's why I called it his fatal flaw. And that's why it was important for Tasha to call him out. And then we see the result with Tasha's death. That's why this all resonates so heavily and should resonate so heavily. Because she called it out from the beginning and he ignored that call out. Anyone in Omar's position, we are absolutely on the same page on this one. Because anyone in Omar's position should know, even if his recon told them they were going on a skeleton crew, the fact that what Tasha said, they've exclusively been hitting the Barksdale stash. They've exclusively been hitting it. So just as a strategist, just as somebody, just as very simple as what we talk about all the time, sports, just something very simple. You play offense, what's the other side going to do? Like it's ABC logic. This isn't. You don't have to be a master class general, a 4-star general, to be like, they're going to do something to try to prevent me from stealing this stash, even if I can't obviously see it. Something's going to be there. And so the fact that there was no preparation for that, and that he just went with the gut, just on a specific the character level, everything right there shows you that there's some type of flaw that's going on, because this isn't the normal Omar that we've been seeing. So what makes it great writing, great show, great acting, everything like this is it is born out of something. He is so personally attached to getting even with the Avon Barksdale organization. He is now doing things he wouldn't normally do, which then that's why it makes him a fatal flaw, because in the business that he's in, when you lose or when you're wrong, you get killed. Like there's not a penalty box, a timeout, run some laps, none of that. So this is a flaw, and it's a big one, because there's only his profession, his existence deals in extremes. And so you can't have a flaw in his profession, and he's showing that he does.
It was clearly an emotional choice that he's making, and again, paid absolutely paid the price for it. Burrell and Royce. So Royce forces Burrell to take the hit for the academy class, and some of the bad press that Royce is receiving because of it. And Royce basically says, "You took the hit before." Royce basically says, "Listen, and this is where Royce is flexing as the mayor and as the boss. Like, hey man, you took the hit before. You take it. You'll take it now. And I appreciate both of them, Commissioner." And of course, Burrell isn't happy, but you're trying to, Burrell, wants to fulfill that term of the full 5 years as the commissioner, the full term. So he can't buck at all. He just has to, suck it up, take the hit, and keep it moving. What were your thoughts on this?
So this is the big piece, kind of like what you were saying when we were talking about Carcetti, in terms of like him putting people in play and hoping it works out. This is the part of his plan that has to work, that he has the least amount of control over. Right. But he calculates that what's the mayor's name? I'm not blanking on his name. Royce. He calculates that Royce is so egotistical that he won't back down. And so if Royce were more attentive to Burrell's situation and was more empathetic and was like, you know what? You took that hit last time. We'll figure it out a way without making you look like an asshole. Then Carcetti's plan falls apart. But his gamble plays off, which again, that gambling scene that you pointed out, that is a metaphor for this whole thing, or analogy, for this whole process, because he has to gamble a lot in a lot of his moves, but his gambling is based off of being able to read people, and that's why that scene is important. Yes. And so his read of Royce pays off in this because he makes Burrell eat shit again. It actually does exactly what Carcetti wants. It actually makes him closer with or pushes him closer to Carcetti. So this is a move that is paying. This scene shows the move is paying off for Carcetti.
Yeah, and Royce also, and we'll get to it later on. Royce also knows that, like, Burrell, like he also knows that he has Burrell in his pocket from the standpoint of Burrell wants to be that full-time commissioner. So he has that, like, Burrell, yes, that he has that leverage over Burrell. Burrell, like I said, yes, Burrell cannot buck. He can bite his lip, he can curse him out when he leaves the room, but he can't. He has to eat that shit.
But Ril, here's what you have to understand, though. Like, it's not, I mean, like, or not you. Here's what the audience needs to understand is that this is not about Burrell bucking at all. Like, right. The gamble, like Carcetti he knows that. Like, to your point, and then to bring it back to where the audience to understand completely what's happening, right? Like, is like Carcetti knows that Royce can't buck against the mayor because he's not solid in his position. Like, there's not even a chance. He probably wouldn't do it anyway, but it's not even a chance in there. And so Carcetti knows the only way for, I'm going to call him Rawls, the only way for Burrell to get what he wants is to go through Carcetti. But in order to do that, Burrell has to feel comfortable double-crossing the mayor. And Carcetti has to help him feel comfortable double-crossing the mayor.
Yep. So we go to Bunk. He continues to look for he's beginning to look for the gun, Dozeman's gun, and he receives a call about Omar's crime, shooting, and what have you. So he heads to that. We'll see how that transpires in a later scene. Um, we go to Comstat, or no, not Comstat. We go to Mello, Lieutenant Mello and Colvin. We have Colvin and a couple other officers, and this is where if you want to know what it looks like at a process in terms of the process of juking the stats, this was the scene for you, because they're talking about different crimes, and the officers are basically saying, okay, how we can maybe downgrade this to that, to this and that. Not going to about to go into specific details of other crimes. Basically, basically Colvin says, you know what, fuck it. We're not going to juke anything. We're going to give them next time we go to Comstat, I'm going to give them clean stats. So you see Colvin refusing to juke the numbers. What were your thoughts on this thing?
It's definitely set up, but it's kind of like big time setup. Because they haven't, like, I paid careful attention. They still haven't introduced that language yet. It hasn't, juking the stats hasn't been a confirmed
right
term at this point in time. So the closest thing that we have, I don't know if this scene has come up yet. It might be after. It might be in this scene, but when they're walking away. Did we talk about them walking away yet?
Walking away.
Was that in this scene where all the captains are leaving and going out to the elevator?
No. We get
in the elevator. Okay. So that's coming. Okay. All right. Okay. So I won't say that part. But you're right on. You're 100% on point. Is showing us the rules of how they manipulate the statistics. And so it's set up in that, because of course that's going to be super, super important all throughout the season, but also it's set up in the way in which Colvin views this final year of his, or his final year, whatever into his retirement, in the fact that his kind of reform is going to actually be like, I'm tired of the BS. So that's just kind of like the initial introduction of that.
Yeah. So we get to Comstat. Colvin, of course, is front and center, taking heat from Rawls in particular, and then later Burrell, as we'll get to. And basically Colvin says, these are clean stats. His murder rate is up in his district. Doesn't make up any bullshit. Says, we're doing what we can do. And that really just tells the truth. I mean, he's not trying to trick them. He's not giving any bullshit. Says this is what it is. Of course, Rawls isn't trying to hear that, and he says, not Rawls, but Colvin says, sometimes the gods don't shine upon you, something to that extent. Sometimes the gods don't favor you. And then Burrell says, it's Baltimore. He says, if the gods are fucking you, you find a way to fuck them back. You find a way to fuck them back. The gods will not save you. He said, either the crime rate will fall. He said, either the crime rate will fall, or you certainly will. The gods will not save you. And of course, that is the epigraph of the episode. What were your thoughts?
Did they get back to the elevator yet?
No. That's a separate scene. The elevator's a separate scene.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So then set up. I'll wrap it when we get to the elevator scene. I'll put it all together.
So you have Bunk at the murder scene. So Bunk is at the murder scene. He sees all the casings. He sees the body of Omar, of the dead girl Tasha, who's of course part of Omar's crew, and also the other dead Barksdale soldier in the street as well. And he's there with Vernon Holly, the other officer that was on the scene that was going to be a primary before Bunk stepped in. And he basically begged Bunk not to have him go back to back as a primary. And he sees the kids across the street imitating Omar. And there's one particular kid that says, "My turn to be Omar. Don't forget about that kid." That is a big big time foreshadowing of this entire series. So one particular kid says, "My turn to be Omar." And of course, Bunk is completely disgusted by this. And again, that's some foreshadowing as well. Bunk's anger towards seeing those kids imitate Omar. So we'll see how that plays out over the course of this season. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, we gotta move on. Set up, but just like you mentioned everything important. There's no way to talk about this without saying it. Yep, we gotta move on.
I guess, and I'll say this. I guess the thing that I took away from it, besides what I just mentioned about the kid, was just how disgusted Bunk was, and his facial expression, his body language in that. So when he saw those kids imitating Omar, so that was my big takeaway from that scene. Besides the obvious, was Bunk's body language and seeing those kids imitate Omar. We get to Marlo and Fruit. Fruit, of course, is one that, of course, ripped off Cuddy a couple episodes back. Has his own corner. He approaches he's basically called into the office by Marlo, and Marlo basically says, "Hey, man, your numbers are down. What's going on?" Fruit, of course, says, Barksdales are taking some of the flipping some of the fiends that are coming up the street. And Marlo says, "Look, man, when I had a shop and my numbers went down, I did something about it." He says, "I just want to see a move." He says, "Take the youngest with you, give him a workout." And Fruit, says, "Okay." And we'll see how that plays out. Again, another example of a theme of a unhappy boss between Comstat and also on the drug in the street with the drug dealers with Marlo. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you nailed it. This is, and this set up for what's going to happen later in the episode.
Colvin, Daniels, and Valchek. This is your elevator scene. So they're walking. The commanders are walking back to the elevator, and they both are giving examples of how they're going to clean up their respective districts, lower the crime rate. Valchek says, overtime, flex patrols, and all this shit like that. They all of them get on the elevator. They ask Colvin, and he says jokingly, I'm just going to legalize drugs. And of course, all of them, thinking that he's joking, begin to laugh, including Daniels. And that was that for that particular scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, everything's been leading up to this scene. Everything that we've been seeing has been leading up to the scene. That's why I wanted to wait on this, because to your point, Cyril, in the last, when he was standing up in front, it's Bizarro World, right? Because he's standing up in front of Comstat and he's telling the truth. He hasn't, to use the language, juked the stats at all, but that's actually bad. He's actually wrong for doing that. So him standing up and telling the truth is wrong. He should be lying. His stats should be juked. All of that should be happening. That's what Rawls and Burrell and the mayor want. That is specifically what should be doing. So him doing the opposite is doing wrong. That's important from this moment forward. Him doing the opposite of that is wrong. So him using his own moral code, his own value system, or established value norms of society is wrong in this situation right now. And so that's why this whole thing gets flipped upside down. And so what I said to your point, what I meant was he wasn't joking. He's actually telling the truth.
Yes.
The idea just sounds like a joke to everybody.
Yeah, well, he wasn't.
And so that's the Bizarro World. He's telling the truth. Everybody laughs because that seems so ridiculous. And so
he wasn't joking. So the way he said it, though, he did say it with a smile. Like, he didn't say it with a straight, like, he didn't say it dead serious. So that, like,
he was dead ass serious. He was dead ass serious. He was dead ass serious. The track of the episode is like, Bunny tells the truth. Nobody can see it's the truth because it doesn't fit the norm, gotcha. Which is why he's a reformer. And so this, this is leading up to this moment because this he definitively says his intentions. And the rest of the episode, we're going to see him making the situation so that what he just said can happen. That was when the idea hit him, or the night before, when the moment where he's like, F it, just give it straight, is the moment he decides he's going to enact his reform. That's why he gives it to them straight. And that's why it's a bizarre world. Yeah, good scene.
Yeah, excellent scene. Stringer and the Barksdale soldiers. Of course, the news has gotten back with what transpired with Omar and the shootings. They tell them that they got one of Omar's, but he killed, but the girl shot one of the Barksdale soldiers, and so Stringer's basically like, I guess we even now. And then he says, that's like a 40-degree get. It says, that's like a 40-degree day. He says, 50 degrees, 50 degrees, niggas step out the house. 60 degrees, motherfuckers is damn near barbecuing. But he says, nobody gives a fuck about a 40-degree day. Y'all giving me way too many 40-degree days. Get this motherfucker. He lets out a plan, says that they're gonna cover Tasha's funeral, and if Omar pops up, just be ready if Omar pops up. He refused. Of course, Donette calls. He refuses to take the call. Shamrock tells Shamrock to hang up the phone. And then at the end of the scene, which was the comedy part of the scene, the guy. So he lays out the plan, and then one of the dudes says, "Yeah, we're gonna be on him." And then the dude Sapper says, "Like a 40-degree day," which shows you that he completely didn't understand the word that Stringer said, and Stringer just shakes his head. Go ahead. I'll let you go down. I have a question for you. Go ahead.
So I like the scene because, again, this is showing the evolution and the maturity of the writing, going from procedural to more dramatic, to become the ultimate story that the Wire needs to become. It needs to evolve to that level of storytelling. And this is another example of they, of course, recognize the actor that Idris Elba is, and so just gives him so much dialogue to chew on. And by chew on, when I say that, I mean gives the actor the ability to take the dialogue, own it, put it into like their own, for lack of a better word, swagger, and then change the tempo of the dialogue. Writer Aaron Sorkin is famous for this, when he gives a character just kind of like a speech to just kind of like just really, really go into. So I really like that scene for this. Go ahead with your question.
So when Stringer's going into him, do you think that the plan he laid out for Omar was, did he actually believe Omar would pop up, or do you think he's trying to save face by showing himself to be a strong leader?
No, that's been considered. So I think the plan is consistent with the plan that the Barksdale organization has always had for Omar. So I don't think that was anything out of line. The thing that I would question would be this plan hasn't been working. So maybe you need to switch it up a little bit.
I mean, I'm not even knocking.
But it's consistent.
I'm not knocking.
It's consistent with the plan they've always had at Omar. And yes, he's trying to be tough in front of. He's always trying to be tough in front of his group.
Right.
Because that's the knock on Stringer. Stringer's the intellectual one.
Right.
Not the tough one. Not the muscle. So yeah, he's always doing that.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't even knocking the plan per se, but I thought he was trying. I thought he was trying to kind of save some face. In terms of that. All right, so we have Cuddy goes to the school to see his old flame. He sees her walking. This is not. We'll see how this scene plays out. He's watching her get out of the car and walk into the school. this is a setup for a later scene we'll see between those two. Um, Royce and Burrell. So they're Royce and Burrell. They're in a meeting where it's Team Royce basically. You know, he has Burrell there. He has his chief of staff and a couple other members is with Delegate Watkins. So it basically has his team, and they're discussing the murder rate. And Burrell in the meeting points the finger at another person in Royce's on Royce's team. They get into a little argument, and then Royce kind of calms down the argument, and says, "Hey, we're all on the same team." He says to the guy whose name is Demper, the white guy name was Demper, says, "Hey, me and you going to be counting votes this time next year." And he says, "Let's pretend like we're on the same team." And then one of them, the chief of staff, jokingly says, "I don't think any of us wants to get a real job." So they leave on a relatively good term from that standpoint. Royce walks out, Depper walks out, and you're left with Royce, the chief of staff, and Delegate Watkins, who we will see as this season plays along will have a major role in moving forward. Delegate Watkins basically says, "Look, you're weak on crime. Demper is a hack, but he's an elected hack." So giving you some insight on the political game. He says, but you need to move on Burrell. He says Burrell is dead wood. You need to get rid of him. There's better out there. And Royce says, no, he's on the team. I value loyalty. And Watkins also, and this is one to kind of like remember for foreshadowing as well. Watkins not only recommends that he gets rid of Royce, he recommends that Royce gets not that he gets rid of Burrell. He recommends that Burrell get rid of somebody, a character that we haven't seen yet, named Unetta Perkins. And he basically says she's had her time, get rid of her. Royce says no, I value loyalty. She's on the team. So I think this was a just very important scene in regards to giving you insight on who Royce is and the fact that he is not listening to a guy who we don't know the importance of Delegate Watkins at this point, but we figured that this guy is an older guy. He's been around the game. We figured that this guy knows the game just based on his age, just based on the fact that, he's an advisor to Royce. So Royce is not listening to him. And I thought this is a very, very pivotal scene moving forward for not only this season, but also for next season as well. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it is, but it's very masked. There's no way at this point in time for me to know that just based off of what is seen in this room. But to your point, there's a consistent theme, and the theme is loyalty. Royce wants people who are loyal above everything else around him. And that can potentially put Burrell in a very bad situation. And so it gives us kind of like a line into like why Carcetti has to be so careful with how he handles the Rawls and Royce situation.
Yes. So we have Landsman and Bunk. Bunk, of course, is working on looking into the murder that happened with the Barksdales and Omar. And instead of looking for the gun, and Landsman catches him. Landsman lets him know that, listen, this gun is priority number one at this point, and you should be looking for this gun. The bosses want the gun, and that's just the way it is. Landsman has an important line in this scene as well. He says the girl that got killed, Tasha, Omar's partner, says she's dead in a zip code that doesn't matter. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah. I mean, like I think that illustrates a lot. But more importantly, there's this tension between, like you say you want to stop the murders, but then you want to take a veteran murder police off of murders to look for a gun to save the police department embarrassment. Like those two things don't go together. And so you get a sense of the hypocrisy of it all.
No question about it.
Essentially.
No question about it. McNulty, Kima, Freeman, and Perlman, they're discussing the details new assignment. McNulty lets them know that, tells them that D'Angelo Barksdale was not a suicide. You have, of course, but you have Freeman and not Freeman. You have Perlman basically standing up for Daniels, of course, because he's dating him about the case, and saying that he's under this type of pressure, under the pressure to bring the murder rate down. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Set up.
You have Omar, Kima, I keep mistaking her name, Kimmy, Omar, Kimmy, and Dante. So this is later on, of course, this is at night. They're back at Omar and Dante's spot. Everybody, of course, is, in a horrible mood based on what transpired. Omar is in the room by himself, laying on the bed, and he burns a cigarette in the palm of his hands as a means of, paying, I guess, that was paying his respects and punishing himself at the same time for what happened to Tasha. He comes out, takes full responsibility for what transpired. So it's on me. It's my fault. I need y'all to hear this. And Kimmy basically says, that does nothing for me. Dante doesn't say anything. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean, like exactly. Like Kimmy said it the best. Like it's a acknowledgement that Omar failed in every way possible.
Yeah, Michael K. Williams was great in the scene, by the way. His acting in the scene was great. I think I love vulnerable Omar, because this guy, like, he's one of the most beloved characters, maybe the most beloved character on the show. You see Omar, rob drug dealers. We see Omar destroy Levy in the courtroom. But when we see Omar, and I think it was very important for the show to show that, yeah, he's kind of like, he's this mythological figure, but there are still some flaws. And we saw it we saw it in season 1 when he got shot by Wee-Bey, and he's out there struggling. He's out there, looking uncomfortable with all the heat that's on him, had the gun stuck to his door and things of that nature. Fast forward to now, he makes a move that completely was, the wrong move, and he pays the price for it. So I like how they bring him down to earth versus the amount of times they make him look like, this larger than life character. I liked how they walk. Enjoy how they walk that balance up until this point in the series. So you have McNulty and Kima. They're drinking at the normal spot there where you would see McNulty and Bunk. So Kima, I thought that was Bunk taking a piss, and then Kima came out. Oh, that's Kima. So she comes out, and they're basically both complaining about their home lives, about their spouses. In the case of McNulty, his ex-spouse. And then towards the latter part of the scene, he tells Kima, I want to go down to around the Western to see what's going on since the towers came down and what's going on from that standpoint. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Set up and just kind of like close the book on like Kima and her home relationship, or another male just cementing it.
Also gives you some insight into in terms of Kima almost becoming McNulty like. A little of that too.
I mean, they're teasing it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So we see Cuddy getting dressed up. Cuddy, gets a couple rounds in on the bag. Gets his gets his shirt, shines his shoes. Cuddy is getting ready. Cuddy gets dressed up, full suit, getting ready for to go see his ex flame. Grandmother gives him not grandmother, mother. His mother gives him some money before he leaves. And
no, you're right. It's grandma. It's his grandmother.
Yeah, his grandma. All right. Yeah, his grandma gives him his money, gives him some money before he leaves, and we'll see what happens when he meets up with his old flame. What were your thoughts on this scene, this quick scene?
Shut up.
We have McNulty and Kima looking at Marlo and the Barksdale crews. So at this point, they don't even know who Marlo's crew is. They don't know anything about Marlo at this point. So they see opposite crews. They see crews on opposite sides of the street. They recognize, of course, the Barksdale crew with Bodie and Poot and what have you. And they're trying to make sense of how the towers can come down and the Barksdales could just spread out without bodies dropping. So we'll see where that leads to. Then you have McNulty get a call that Ray Cole has just collapsed on the Stairmaster, and that's, of course, we'll see how that we'll see where that leads to as well in this later on in this episode. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, shut up.
Fruit and Marlo. So yeah, Fruit follows Marlo's orders, and they beat up the Barksdale's crew. They pull up in a car with about at least four of them. Two of them pointing guns at the Barksdale crew, and they beat about 4 or 5 Barksdale crew members up with bats and pull off. What were your thoughts?
Shut up. Simple as that. Beat them up. They follow Marlo's orders.
Herc, Carver, McNulty, and Kima. So Herc and Kima and McNulty go down to the Western District to see if they can get some information on what's going on in the streets since the towers went down. And Herc and Carver have nothing in regards to what's going on. And Herc basically says, there's been quiet because the streets know what we'll do to them, which we know is a bunch of bullshit. And Kima has an important line in this scene, basically tells Carver, says a police is only as good as its CIs. And that was the most important line in that particular scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is the mostly setup, but that is the important line in there. You're absolutely right.
Colvin and the Western District. So Colvin tells the Western District officers that they are moving all street trafficking to designated areas to sell drugs. Now he gives them the truth, but not the entire truth, because he says once we move them there, then we're gonna jump out. We're gonna jump out on them, which is not true. So he kind of makes it seem like this is going to be like a elaborate undercover sting operation, which is not the case. What were your thoughts?
I mean, like that's the major point. Like now, COVID needs to make these things happen, and we'll see it in all of our reformers. Saying you want something to happen differently is one thing. Actually making it happen is its own thing. And most times when you do that to make something happen and to get the general public or whoever the people are who need to make it happen, you have to play around with the truth, or you have to massage the message, probably the better way to say it. And so this is his version of massaging his message, because he knows just saying to his troops, we're not going to arrest drug dealers no more, and that's it. Will not go over well.
Not at all. You have Cuddy and Grace, so they finally meet up at the school. Cuddy, of course, is in his suit. Tells her Grace, of course, is a teacher, and by the way, the actress is the same character that played her sister. She played both characters, her and her sister. She tells him,
So
yeah. Hey, save money.
yep.
She tells him that about some potential job opportunities. He tries to make. I don't think he was trying to make a pass at her when he said that it hurts to look at you, because at that point, I mean, she told him that she had a son. He saw the baby seat in the car, and the son was named after his father. So he basically was just reminiscing on the past from that standpoint. Says that it hurts to look at you. She says, well, then don't look. And he gets his number about the possible job opportunities, which is something that we'll see how that flushes out over the course of the season. What was your thoughts with their interaction?
Yeah, set up.
And of course, she by the way was surprised. She asked him, were you driving a Lex? Because she knew, of course, she dated him. She dated him when he was in the game, working for the Barksdales, and tells her that I'm on got a bus pass. So she kind of was impressed by the fact that he had turned around his life from that standpoint.
I mean, like these are the important. Let me say that these are the importance of the Cuddy scenes is like how challenging it is. I haven't spoke on this, and I probably should say something. I've been more focused on Spring. So I've been more focused on Stringer and all of that. The importance of the Cuddy character is and why he's one of the main symbols of reform in this is there's two things. A, prison reform, right? Like, what does it look like for somebody who goes to jail and authentically wants to make a better life for themselves, or not authentically, that's the one word, who seems to sincerely wants to make another life for themselves. When he gets out of prison, what we've seen and what we will continue to see are all the challenges that are in part of that process. Like, literally, like his grandmother had to give him money. Like, he can't get a job. His grandmother has to give him money. It's not setting somebody up for success, the way in which they come out of prison and all the different things that are being asked from. So that's what the show's trying to show with Cuddy. And in particularly the Cuddy character is all about like how you can be one person at one moment. In particular, like with Cuddy, he was a drug dealer. He was in the game. He was, murderer, blah, blah, like all the different stuff going inside the prison. Now coming out, he wants to be something different. He just doesn't know what it is. And this is part of that process. And you're absolutely right. When he says the words, it hurts to see you. It's essentially what he's saying is it hurts because I've lost 15 years of my life. And now I see how you've had the opportunity to evolve as a person from, when they last left each other, she was enough around the game. Maybe she was on her way out or had gotten away from it, but she was enough around the game that they got involved with each other. And now he looks at her and sees a completely different her. And that hurts because she's had the opportunity to evolve. All he's been is stuck in prison and thinking about the life that he lost and not having that chance to evolve as a person. And so that's why the Cuddy characters are important in this season. It's all about not only like not prison reform, because they're not trying to reform the prison, but reform once you get out of prison. And then what does that actually look like? How do you navigate that process? That's why Cuddy's important.
Yeah, there'll be some powerful Cuddy moments.
Yeah. There's stuff coming later on.
Coming up in a couple of episodes, without question. So you have Bubbles, Johnny, Kima, and McNulty. Kima and McNulty are going to give Bubbles, of course, anytime they need some information. Who better than to go to than one Bubbles? Bubbles is at a soup kitchen, and Bubbles basically says, "Look, I'm down for whatever. I need some money." But Johnny, of course, is completely against it in terms of snitching. and what have you. Bubbles is like, all right, you do what you want to do. I'm out. Uh, well, he tried. First of all, he tries to convince Johnny, and he actually was taking too long. And then Kima had to check him. Kima had to check Bubbles, and basically like, look, we ain't got all day here. Let's go. And then we find out at the end of the scene that Officer Cole has passed away. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, set up.
So we have Carcetti is at an event, telling the story. He's with the family, and we see him eye a young lady at the bar, which will be a setup, of course. Quick scene, but it was enough in this scene to let you know how smooth this dude is in terms of like he has a gift of gab, the gift of gab in terms of storytelling. Like he can engage the audience with his storytelling. So even though this was a quick scene, and even though this is definitely a setup scene, it gave you enough to let you know that this dude, to add on to this dude's, in terms of his storytelling and just like and the actor was brilliant. The actor is brilliant. By the, I forgot the actor's name. Adrian Gillian or something like that. But just his ability to engage an audience, which is a gift in itself. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, you dug a lot out of that. I'm gonna go set up.
Okay. No, it was quick scene. I mean, it wasn't too much in the scene. Donette, Shamrock, Stringer. Stringer sees the battered Barksdale dealers after, of course, they took a beating from Marlo's people. Donette, of course, continues to call. He tells Stringer, can you call Shamrock? Of course, Shamrock, Stringer refuses to take the call, and Bodie tells Stringer Marlo is a problem. What are your thoughts?
Yep, that's what we were leading up to. Most people have gotten on board with the business aspect of this, not Marlo. So that was the announcement of that. Marlo's going to be a problem.
Yep. Carcetti and Burrell, we see them discussing. We see them discussing him taking the hit for Royce. And again, Carcetti is being careful in terms of how he has to navigate those muddy waters, so to speak. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, pretty much a setup, but I like how you said being careful navigating those muddy waters.
So we're at Cole's wake. And before I get into the scene, officer, if you didn't know, Ray Cole, the guy who played Ray Cole was one of the executive producers of the show, Robert Colesbury, who died unexpectedly before season 3. He was one of the more respected from the stuff that I read, outside of Simon and Burns, they make him out to be like he was probably the most important part of the show. Like this dude.
Well, he died, so there's a lot. Sorry, that's just my. Keep going.
No, I'm saying.
I know what you're talking about. I do know what you're saying.
Okay, so this cat. So we saw his character who played, the incompetent officer Ray Cole. Maybe that's a little harsh and incompetent, but just the bungling detective Ray Cole over the first 2 seasons. He died unexpectedly before season 3 premiered. So this was a dedication to him from that standpoint.
Yeah.
He's laid out on the bar, in a bar room pool table, as you have Landsman, Landsman giving his eulogy. And this will not, of course, be the first time we see that done in this particular series. What are your thoughts on this whole setup? All the officers gathering and playing the song, playing the music, and this whole particular scene.
Yep, nope, you said it perfectly. They were memorializing him.
Also, we have Carcetti and family. So Carcetti is wrapping up the event. Not wrapping up the event, sends his family home and tells his wife, God, have a couple, got a couple more people got to talk to, and so on and so on. Of course, we know it's bullshit because we saw him earlier eyeing a young lady at the bar, and we'll see how that plays out at the end of that at the end of the episode. So probably another scene setting up the episode. Um, Bulk and McNulty, they are outside the bar. Both are completely just wasted. Cole comes out as they discuss Cole. Excuse me, as they discuss Cole, and of course, Bulk kind of comes at McNulty a little bit, saying that he checked out of here, having a clearance. You owe him a clearance from that bird case with Omar, and McNulty says, "Yeah, I know." And then you see Norris, who's also drunk, comes out, gives them a shot, and then proceeds to just throw up right in front of the funeral people who are just shaking their heads. And and then after he throws up, Bulk gives him a cup of beer. So just a bunch of basically drunk cops celebrating the death of Officer Cole. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Set up. Not even set up. It's just a scene.
So we have Carcetti. Of course, Carcetti has sex with the lady from the event that he had been eyeing throughout the course of the night. Nothing big here. Carcetti cheating on his wife. Then we have Slim Charles and the Barksdale soldiers. They, of course, at the orders of Stringer, cover Tasha's funeral, and you have Omar paying his respects behind, smoking cigarettes behind a tree. Of course, the Barksdales don't see him. So, okay, and this is why I had to ask you about the plan that Stringer had about covering the funeral, and hey, maybe Omar pops up. So Omar is right there, like he's literally across the street behind the tree. So if it was the plan, right? Why were none of the Barksdale soldiers even like looking in that vicinity as far as or in that area to see if Omar would pop up? I mean, they couldn't believe that he would actually walk in the funeral home to pay his respects. So I'm not confused by that, but I was kind of like, he actually did show up. So that's why I asked you about the plan that Stringer had with covering the funeral. What were your thoughts on this?
I mean, like there's no functional thought. Like the scene is what it is, but then like if I'm going to zoom in with you on like why things happen in the specific way that they're happening from like what's going on with the character standpoint, then the consistent thing is the Barksdale organization as existed at the very beginning of season 1 no longer exists. It hasn't existed like that for a while, since the end of season 1. So they've said many, many times, we don't have muscle.
Right.
And, even with what we know and who we know is there, it's not a lot of muscle. And so, yeah, you can put a plan in place, but you still need the people to execute it, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I would resolve that one.
So you had so that wrapped up the episode. Of course, with themes, I talked earlier about unhappy bosses. We saw Marlo coming at Fruit, Stringer coming at his crew, Royce going after Burrell, Rawls going after subordinates. So a lot of unhappy bosses in this particular episode. Who was your Chardine and also MVP?
So my MVP is very clear. It's Colvin. Like, it's very clear to me. Okay. It's Colvin. Okay. In this episode, the Chardine one is not as clear to me. I don't know who kind of like stole the show in this one. It was a pretty consistent episode all the way around. And so I think if I went Chardine for anybody, I would probably give it to Carcetti for that scene like I talked about with him, Tony Gray, and the reporter. Just the way everybody played that scene was pretty damn fantastic in general. So yeah, so I think that's the way that I would go.
I had a tough time with the MVP, so I'll go Charlene first. Charlene, I had Landsman at the weight. I thought he was good in that scene.
Okay, nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought that, and because not only because he was good at that scene, eulogies are like to give eulogies. That is a that's a that is so that is the difficult like job to give somebody's eulogy. Like it's just like that balance of saying good things and not over talking like that. That is I've never given a eulogy, but I've been to funerals. It's not an easy job. Not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. So I thought he handled that just as well as you could possibly handle it. And I thought the actor was tremendous in that scene. MVP, I had it connected with the theme I had. I thought the bosses. I thought I had all the bosses, whereas Marlo, uh, the mayor, Ross. It was not even so much the bosses, but the ideal of that. Even as the boss, even when I'm right, I'm wrong. I'm right, and we've all been there before. Like you got shit trickling down. Like even like that idea of just having to just somewhat carry the water for the boss at some point in your respective career per se. So I had that ideal as the MVP even more so than the actual bosses. So that of course is episode 3, Dead Soldiers of The Wire. Of course, next week we'll have episode 4, Amsterdam, where we'll see Bunny's try to flush out his plan in terms of what he's trying to do as a reformer. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, Wire Remix. As always, thanks to Rob Sapp for joining the podcast. I will see you next time, buddy.
All right, everybody be safe, be healthy, and stay dry.
Question. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will have this podcast will probably be dropped, I would say, tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it tomorrow. Also, another podcast as well. I'm out.